Chapter 1. The Solar Surprise. It started with a humming noise, a low, persistent drone that hadn't been there before, not the usual chirping of birds or the rustle of wind through the dry brush. This was mechanical, artificial, out of place. Clayton Ridge, third-generation rancher, part-time beekeeper, full-time lover of solitude, stood on his porch, coffee in hand, squinting into the morning sun. "What the hell?" he muttered, shading his eyes. Just past the fence on the south edge of his 140-acre property in Arizona, rows of freshly planted solar panels glittered like smug little mirrors. They hadn't been there yesterday. Clayton would have noticed. He walked the same trail every evening with his dog Hank, a mutt with more personality than brains. And yet there they were, at least a dozen shiny black panels stretched along the boundary line, some of them clearly on his land. Hank let out a small growl as if agreeing, "This smells like HOA." And it did. Clayton had dealt with them before. The Prescott Hills HOA was notorious. They had rules about everything, from grass height to acceptable holiday inflatables. But since Clayton's ranch predated the development by nearly 80 years, his property was technically outside their jurisdiction. He made sure of it. His grandfather made sure of it. His great-grandfather built the damn fence line himself to draw the boundary. But these folks, oh, they were clever little pests. 2 days earlier, he'd received a letter. One of those glossy envelopes with fake gold leafing and a too-friendly font. "Dear neighbor," it began, "we are proud to inform you that our community has taken a bold step toward sustainability by installing a state-of-the-art solar array system to benefit the greater good." Clayton stopped reading around line 5, tossed it on the table and mumbled, "Anytime someone says greater good, they're about to screw you over without lube." He had no idea how right he was. Back to the present, he grabbed his old pickup keys, whistled for Hank, and drove down the rocky path to the property line. The closer he got, the more furious he became. Not only were some panels clearly on his side of the fence, but the foundation poles had dug through his irrigation lines, the very ones that watered his orchard. He parked the truck, grabbed his phone, and started taking pictures. Wide shots, close-ups, panoramas. Hell, he even got down on his belly to snap one from underneath. "Smile, you shiny bastards," he growled, snapping one last shot with the Arizona sun flaring beautifully in the background. Within hours, a white SUV rolled up the gravel road, slow and cautious, like it was afraid of catching ranch dust. Out stepped a woman in wedge sandals, linen pants, and a shirt that said, "Solar is the future." Clayton didn't need a name tag to know who she was. "Good morning," she chirped. "I'm Melanie, president of the Prescott Hills HOA. You must be Mr. Ridge." "I must," Clayton said flatly, "and you must be trespassing." Melanie's smile flickered. "Oh, well, I'm just here to answer any questions about the solar expansion. Isn't it wonderful green energy right at your doorstep?" "You mean on my doorstep," he replied, nodding toward the panels. "Some of those are 15 feet past the fence." Melanie tilted her head like a curious chicken. "Well, that's odd. Our contractors said the land was unused. That's not the same as unowned." But don't you think it's nice to be part of something bigger?" Clayton gave her a stare so dry it could start brush fires. "You came all the way out here to ask me to be proud that you dumped $1 million worth of solar panels on my ranch without permission?" Melanie's smile returned, this time strained like a hairline fracture. "Well, technically," she said, pulling out a folded map. "This plot was ambiguously documented in the county registry. We're working with a shared easement agreement that may overlap with—" He held up a hand. "Lady, my great-granddaddy laid that fence. I have deeds, surveys, a hand-drawn map with a mustard stain from 1962 that proves this land is mine." Melanie blinked. "Oh," she said weakly. "Well, and perhaps we should revisit the documents." Clayton nodded. "Yeah, you do that. While you're at it, calculate the cost of relocating a dozen solar panels and replacing 2 irrigation pipes. Oh, and fixing my alpaca gate. Your crew spooked 'em." Melanie opened her mouth, then closed it, then got back in the car. Hank barked once, short, sharp, and smug. That night, Clayton sat by the fireplace, sipping whiskey and flipping through an old leather-bound ledger. Hank snoozed at his feet. The lights flickered once, probably from all the extra energy being yanked off the panels into the HOA's shiny new grid. He paused on a page labeled Ridge Family Contingency Clauses, 1972 edition. A smile slowly curled across his face. "Well, Grandpa," he muttered, "looks like it's time to dust off the clause about unauthorized improvements by external parties." He reached for his land deed, the original paper copy, not some scanned PDF. It had coffee stains, ink smears, and the signature of a county clerk who probably died during the Reagan administration. The deed contained a clause, a brilliant clause. Any permanent structure installed on this property by external parties without signed contractual permission shall revert in full ownership to the Ridge family, including but not limited to utility equipment, fixtures, foundations, and transmission rights. It had been written in 1972 by his grandfather, who once lost part of the East Field to a sneaky telephone company. He swore never again. Clayton chuckled and raised his glass. "Checkmate, Karen." Chapter 2, The Friendly Letter. 3 days after Melanie's awkward visit, Clayton received another envelope. It was larger than the first, sealed with a faux wax HOA stamp, and stuffed thick like it was trying to look official. The kind of mail that tried too hard. He didn't even need to open it to know it would be ridiculous. He opened it anyway, with a steak knife, because that's what real ranchers do. Inside a full-color packet titled Prescott Hills Community Solar Unity Program, TM, subtitle An Opportunity to Participate in a Brighter Future, Clayton stared at the cover page like it had just insulted his mother. Then he read it out loud in his best snobby HOA voice. "Dear Mr. Ridge, as a proud neighbor of the Prescott Hills community, you've been chosen to host a portion of our state-funded solar infrastructure for shared benefit and mutual progress. Our vision is a unified, eco-conscious neighborhood driven by innovation, inclusion, and sunlight." He stopped, blinked twice, then turned to Hank. "Did they just say I've been chosen, like I won a damn raffle to get trespassed on?" Hank groaned and buried his nose under a paw. Clayton kept reading, partly out of morbid curiosity. "Though minor construction occurred without your express consent, we see this as a shared community win. We encourage you to accept this new chapter in our collective journey and embrace your honorary title Green Energy Partner, GEP Level 1. Attached was a laminated badge that said GEP Level 1 with a little solar panel cartoon giving a thumbs up. Clayton held it up to the light. "This might be the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I once watched a cow try to climb a trampoline." The letter that broke the rancher. But then came the kicker. "Please be advised, as a temporary custodian of shared HOA assets, you will be subject to a recurring monthly maintenance fee of $387.50 plus surcharges, billed quarterly. Failure to comply may result in penalties as per Section 14B of the Community Improvement Act." Clayton's jaw dropped. "They want me to pay them for putting their stuff on my land." He stood up so fast he knocked over his chair. "Okay, that's it. Gloves off." He grabbed the badge, walked outside, hung it on a fence post, and nailed a note next to it. "Dear HOA, your solar panels are trespassing. Your bill is rejected. Your badge is now a scarecrow accessory. Love, Clayton." Meanwhile, at the HOA inside the HOA clubhouse, which looked like a spa mated with a DMV, Melanie sat in her polished office, staring at a PDF of Clayton's sarcastic reply. Someone had scanned it from the fence post. She was sweating under the air conditioning. Her vice president, Doug, who wore golf shirts year-round, leaned over her desk. "We have a problem," he whispered. "Oh, really, Doug? I couldn't tell." He scratched his head. "I thought we had the easement agreement. We had a sketch from a developer who retired 10 years ago. But the county map was never updated, and if Ridge has the original deed..." They both went quiet. Doug eventually said, "Should we, just move the panels?" Melanie slowly turned toward him with the look of a woman contemplating arson. "Do you know how much that grid cost? How many contractors it took? We already held the press conference. Channel 9 called it the beacon of HOA progress." Doug looked like he was about to cry. Melanie grabbed her phone. "Fine, we lawyer up." Back at the ranch, Clayton had no intention of lawyering up just yet. No, he was having too much fun. He started calling it Solar Island, gave the area its own name, made a wooden sign, even wrote a fake brochure for tourists. Welcome to Ridge Solar Island, TM, population 0. Ownership 100% mine. Trespassers will be charged emotional rent. He posted it on Facebook. It went viral. Even local news picked it up with the headline, "Man inherits solar panels he didn't ask for, declares energy independence." Clayton laughed so hard he nearly choked on beef jerky. But the best part, his lawyer was an old family friend, retired, but still sharp as a cactus and twice as prickly. Name's Bert Lanning, a man who once sued a hardware store because their screws were too smugly priced. Clayton handed him the HOA packet. Bert didn't even read past page 1 before muttering, "Yep, they screwed themselves. Classic overreach. This is going to be fun." Letters go out within days. Clayton's counter notice arrived at HOA HQ. It was short and to the point. Legal notice of ownership claim. As per Article 7C of the Ridge Land Charter, 1972, any structure installed without consent becomes a legal property of the Ridge estate. This includes, but is not limited to, solar panels, battery packs, and underground cabling now embedded on my land. As such, I am billing the Prescott Hills HOA for the sum of $195,400, the estimated fair market value of the system, due within 30 days. Failure to pay will result in a public auction of said assets, as per Arizona Statute 33-931. Sincerely, Clayton Ridge, proud owner of unwanted technology. It sent the HOA into a full tailspin. Cue the panic emails flew. Phone calls echoed. HOA board members gathered like panicked squirrels in a rainstorm. Melanie tried calling Clayton. He let it go to voicemail and replied via fax. Fax, just to be petty. "Sorry I missed your call. I was busy polishing my new solar grid. It really ties the field together." Doug resigned. He took a job at a bowling alley. Said it was less political. As the sun set over the ranch that evening, Clayton sat on his porch, sipping a fresh brew of cactus tea, watching as the panels tilted slightly with the fading light. Hank laid nearby, tail wagging in his sleep. "Geppy level 1, Clayton murmured, chuckling. "More like HOA's favorite fool." He leaned back in his chair, calm as a rattlesnake in the sun. The war had just begun, and the Ridge family. They'd been waiting 50 years for this moment. Tuyet voi, duojai la chuong tri. A rancher's calm, noi Clayton ba jiao fangkong, bang sukien han, thong min va kai gaolan, jung fong kash kua mot rancher maulan, tim am va ko di chuchman. Chapter 3, A Rancher's Calm. There's an art to waiting. Out in the Arizona desert, patience isn't a virtue, it's survival. You wait for the rain, you wait for calves to drop, you wait for snakes to slither out of your boots. And Clayton Ridge. He was a professional waiter. So while the HOA panicked, lawyered up, sent frantic emails, and even tried to call in a county assessor, Clayton just kept drinking his cactus tea and tending to his tomatoes. That's what scared them most. The fence line meeting 1 week later, another car pulled up to the fence line. This one wasn't HOA branded. It was a slick black sedan with government plates. A man stepped out wearing khakis too clean for the desert and shoes that probably cost more than a month's worth of cattle feed. Clayton leaned against the fence, arms crossed, Hank at his feet like a sleepy sentry. "Mr. Ridge," the man asked. "That's what it says on my socks," Clayton replied. The man gave a tight chuckle. "I'm from the county property office. I'm here to review the solar boundary dispute." "You mean the land theft via glittery panels incident?" The man cleared his throat. "We prefer easement ambiguity." Clayton smiled, slow and wide. "Sure, and I prefer free barbecue over unlicensed hog roast. But here we are." He handed over a folder, thick, dusty, and labeled Ridge Property Documents, Originals. Inside were a 1938 county survey, a 1972 land charter written by Grandpa Ridge, a notarized clause titled Unpermitted Fixtures Clause, signed by 2 county clerks, one of whom had a suspiciously old-timey mustache, and a photo of young Clayton holding a sign that read, "Hands off our land, HOA nerds." The county man whistled low. "Well, this is extremely thorough." Yep, Clayton said. We don't play fast. We play forever. Meanwhile, in the HOA bunker, Melanie was unraveling. She'd spent hours trying to spin the narrative. She even tried calling the solar project a temporary ecological experiment in community land sharing. Nobody was buying it. Not after the local paper ran a headline, "Man traps HOA in legal solar bear hug using grandpa's doomsday clause." Her inbox was a war zone. One board member wanted to sue Clayton. Another wanted to give up and sell Avon. And Doug, now managing the bowling alley, sent her a picture of his new name tag with the caption, "No HOA here, just turkeys and pins." Melanie had one hope left: a loophole. If they could prove that the Ridge family's clause wasn't enforceable in modern context, maybe they could weasel out. That's when she discovered the worst news of all. The lawyer that time forgot, Bert Lanning, Clayton's retired lawyer friend, wasn't just some desert-dwelling dinosaur with a grudge against the system. He was the co-author of Arizona's Rural Fixture Rights Act, the very legislation that upheld the kind of clauses Clayton was using. Bert had written half of the obscure laws that even the county barely remembered, and he still had the original typewriter. When Melanie's legal team tried to argue that the clause was anachronistic, Bert mailed them a letter, typed on yellowed paper, which read, "Dear HOA clowns, you may call it old. I call it enforceable. Kindly pound sand. Yours in legal vengeance. B. Lanning, Escom." Back at the ranch, Clayton kept calm. He planted more tomatoes, started a second row of lavender, ordered a custom sign that said "Solar Grid Tours," $5, tips encouraged, HOA staff pay. Double tourists actually showed up. He gave them lemonade and explained how he became the accidental owner of $1.2 million worth of solar tech. A travel blogger wrote an article, "Meet the cowboy who tricked his HOA into giving him a solar empire." Clayton wasn't even mad about the tricked part. He just framed the article and hung it next to Grandpa's shotgun. A letter from beyond one night. As the wind howled outside and Hank snored like a small tractor, Clayton found something even he had forgotten. Tucked inside the family ledger was a sealed envelope with his name, written in Grandpa Ridge's famously bad handwriting. He opened it. Inside was a single sentence. "If the HOA ever crosses the fence, don't get mad. Just water your plants and wait." Clayton chuckled. He raised his glass to the ceiling. "Still playing chess from the grave, huh, old man?" He sat back, letting the quiet wash over him. No rage, no stress, just calm. Calculated calm, because the trap had already sprung. The only thing left now was to watch them try to wriggle free. Chapter 4: The Trap Awakens. By midweek, the Prescott Hills HOA legal team had moved from denial to full-on damage control. What started as a minor boundary error had escalated into a nightmare of legal landmines. Angry board members, panicking residents, and a man named Clayton Ridge who refused to stop smiling in his porch chair like a man who'd already won. Because he had. The discovery inside the conference room at HOA HQ, where kombucha dispensers met overpriced succulents, Melanie stood at the head of the table, holding a document printed on ancient-looking paper. Doug, in a moment of guilt and maybe spite, had delivered it. "Just so you know," he'd whispered, this is where it all goes to hell." It was the full Ridge Land Charter, including Article 7C, the infamous Unpermitted Fixtures Clause. Addendum X, an expansion passed in 1983, referencing technological improvements of substantial market value. And most damning of all, Clause 7C 4B, said ownership shall be retroactive and absolute, irrespective of external financing or public utility partnerships. All energy generated from unauthorized fixtures may be subject to usage taxation by the Ridge estate at fair market rate. Melanie blinked. "Wait, what does that mean?" Their attorney, an overpaid corporate shark named Alan, grimaced. "It means Ridge owns it. All of it. The panels, the power, the underground wiring, the data nodes. And legally, he could charge you for the electricity you're pulling from the system." Another board member gasped. "You mean he can bill us?" Alan nodded. "Yes, and if you don't pay, he can shut it down. Or worse, auction it." A silence fell over the room. Not a quiet silence. A funeral silence. Melanie sat down hard, her mouth moving but no sound coming out. Doug, watching the chaos from the doorway, sipped a smoothie and muttered, "Guess that's why you don't build a solar empire on cowboy turf." Clayton's solar meter back on the ranch, Clayton had officially renamed the field Ridge Grid, power by accident, owned by destiny. He'd even installed a custom energy meter, a bright red analog dial attached to a wooden post, just so he could walk visitors over and say, "See that's the number of kilowatt hours the HOA owes me for." Ticking up faster than a squirrel on espresso. Bert the lawyer thought it was hilarious. "You realize," he told Clayton one afternoon, "you could legally sell this whole solar array to a crypto mining company and leave the HOA paying to power dog memes." Clayton raised an eyebrow. "Tempting, but I like to let him sweat." Bert chuckled. "Just like your grandfather. He once made a water company pay him to walk their pipes across his pond. Then he bought a jet ski with the check." HOA makes a move. Desperate, the HOA tried one last maneuver: eminent domain. They petitioned the county, claiming that Clayton's land was vital to the community's green energy future. Clayton showed up to the hearing in full rancher regalia boots, bolo tie, a straw hat older than most of the board members, and a belt buckle the size of Nebraska. When the HOA's attorney argued that the land was unused, Clayton stood up, pulled out a small potted cactus, and said, "This here's George. He lives on that land. He's been watered every day. That makes it used." The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge smirked. And when the HOA claimed the solar system was a public good, Clayton handed over the deed again. "This here says I own everything on that land. So by that logic, I just became your public energy supplier. Should I start sending invoices?" The petition was denied in less than 10 minutes. The HOA cracks. That night, Melanie hosted an emergency HOA meeting via Zoom. It was chaos. One member quit mid-call, screaming about solar socialism. Another demanded they apologize and offer Clayton a cow or something. Doug joined in from the bowling alley break room and kept muting Melanie every time she spoke. And then, on live stream, Clayton emailed the board an invoice. Subject line: HOA Power Rental, Month 1, attachment PDF with the HOA logo. Total due 22 248 timon. Notes: payment in beef jerky also accepted, but only the good kind. Melanie closed her laptop, then threw it across the room. Clayton's calm as HOA morale fell apart like a soggy taco. Clayton remained calm. Each morning, he'd wake up, brew some cowboy coffee, walk out to the Ridge Grid, and sit in a foldable chair with Hank by his side. He didn't need to gloat. He just existed. And the quiet way he existed, without fuss, without noise, made the HOA panic even more. Because they knew this wasn't just a trap. It was a legacy. Laid decades ago by a man in a flannel shirt who thought 4 steps ahead and hated paperwork thieves. Clayton looked out across the panels that shimmered in the desert light, then said softly to no one in particular, "It's not about winning. It's about reminding them who owns the dirt beneath their feet." Chapter 5, HOA doubles down. Any reasonable organization, after trespassing, losing in court, and getting publicly roasted by a man who names his cactus George, would tuck its tail and retreat. But this was the Prescott Hills HOA. They didn't retreat. They doubled down. And it was the dumbest thing they ever did. The lawsuit won Monday morning. Clayton received a manila envelope delivered by certified mail. It was thick, overcompensating thick. The kind of thickness that screamed we're desperate, but we formatted it in Times New Roman, so it looked serious. Hank sniffed it like it was already rotten. Inside, a cease and desist order. "You are hereby instructed to vacate all claims to the solar installation located on your property. Failure to comply will result in civil action for obstruction, unlawful usage, and willful sabotage of public energy infrastructure." Clayton stared at the page, then snorted. "Sabotage? I haven't even touched the damn thing. I just named it." He flipped to the last page. There it was, filed by Melanie Harper, president of the Prescott Hills HOA. He sat down on his porch chair, sipped his coffee, and turned to Hank. "Well, buddy, they just tried to sue me for owning what they installed without asking." Hank blinked slowly, clearly unimpressed. Clayton smiled. "Let's give them the response they deserve. Response rancher style. Instead of calling his lawyer, Clayton did something better. He walked out to the ridge grid, took a selfie with the solar panels, and printed it out as the cover page to his legal response. Across the top in bold red marker, he wrote, "Try me." He attached a handwritten counterclaim with bullet points: Item 1, trespassing. Item 2, unauthorized land modification. Item 3, attempted theft of energy rights. Item 4, emotional distress caused to Hank. See Exhibit a sad dog face. Item 5, unauthorized installation of stupid badge system. See GEP Level 1. He mailed it to the HOA with a $1 bill attached. Message written on the dollar. Here's a refund for the wattage you might have used. Don't spend it all in one Tesla. HOA goes public. Melanie thought the lawsuit would intimidate Clayton. Instead, it backfired spectacularly. The press got wind of it, and not just local news this time. CNN, Vice, even a YouTuber with 10 million followers covered the story with headlines like, "The man who legally stole a solar farm from his HOA, rancher traps HOA in decades-old land clause. Like a cowboy Batman, Clayton Ridge for president." The HOA's PR team tried to spin it. "We simply seek fairness and environmental justice." But no one bought it, especially not after a meme of Melanie holding a cease and desist got photoshopped to say, "I trespassed and now I'm mad." It was printed on coffee mugs. Clayton bought 6. The courtroom disaster. When the hearing day came, Melanie arrived wearing her best power suit. She brought 5 lawyers. Clayton showed up in jeans, boots, and a bolo tie shaped like an armadillo. The judge, an old ranching woman named Judge Beatrice Cordell, who once sentenced a tourist to community service for calling a horse just a big dog. It was over before it began. Clayton handed over the deed. Bert handed over the charter. And Judge Cordell handed Melanie a legal spanking. "I've seen HOA overreach before," she said, leveling her gaze at the board. "But this is the first time I've seen it come with solar panels and a stupid badge system." Case dismissed. Counterclaim pending. HOA on full tilt. The sweet sound of silence. That night, HOA's Slack channel imploded. Doug messaged the entire board, "I warned y'all, you don't mess with legacy ranchers." They bury receipts in the dirt and wait 40 years to dig them up. One by one, board members started quitting. One left a single message: "If we survive this, I'm joining a commune." Melanie went silent. No more memos. No more letters. No more visits in SUVs with eco bumper stickers. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that said, "We got." Back at the ranch, Clayton was back on his porch. Same chair, same mug, same dog. He watched the panels hum in the distance. His panels now. And grinned. He wasn't vengeful. He was just steady, like a rattlesnake in a rocking chair. And as the sun dipped over the Arizona horizon, he whispered to himself, "They doubled down. I'm just getting started." Chapter 6, You Want to Play Legal. There's a point in every fight where the gloves come off. For Clayton, that point had already passed. Now he was rolling up his sleeves. And Bert was sharpening pencils like a man preparing for war. The war room, aka Bert's kitchen. Clayton sat at Bert's kitchen table, a place that smelled permanently of printer ink, black coffee, and mild resentment toward bureaucracy. Spread across the table were maps, deeds, zoning codes, and one very angry HOA complaint folder now being used as a coaster. Bert tapped his pen against a legal pad. "You want to play legal? Let's play legal." Clayton leaned back. "I thought we were already doing that." Bert grinned like a retired gunslinger. "That was just foreplay." He pointed to a clause in the Ridge family charter. "In the event of external unauthorized installation of income-producing infrastructure." He paused. Clayton raised an eyebrow. "Income-producing," Bert nodded. "Solar panels sell energy. Energy equals money. Money equals liability." Then he slid over another document, one Clayton hadn't seen before. State of Arizona, Public Energy Microgrid Licensing Program. "Sign this," Bert said, "and you officially become an independent energy provider." Clayton blinked. "You mean I can charge the HOA for using their own solar panels?" Bert nodded again. "With state backing, legally, with interest." Clayton whistled. "Well, hot damn." Introducing RidgeGrid TM. 2 weeks later, a new sign appeared by the solar array entrance, Ridge Grid TM. Clean power, cowboy-owned now serving Prescott Hills HOA. Rates negotiable. Petty fee included. Melanie nearly choked on her green juice when she saw the name pop up in her HOA utility report. The Prescott Hills neighborhood was now receiving 40% of its power from Ridge Grid TM, a power source they technically funded, installed, and then gave away by accident. Clayton sent the HOA a formal invoice printed on premium paper, embossed and scented with mesquite. Invoice Nushers 1001 client Prescott Hills, HOA provider Ridge Grid TM, total due $13 and $7.55 from our service period since y'all trespassed. Notes, prompt payment ensures uninterrupted sunshine. HOA tries to fight back. Again, Melanie, who now had permanent eye twitches, scheduled an emergency board meeting. "This is extortion," she hissed, slamming the invoice on the table. But her remaining board members, now reduced to 3 and a sleepy intern named Kayla, looked exhausted. One of them said, "Technically, it's not. The system's on his land. We lost the case. The judge said he owns it. And now the county lists Ridge Grid as an energy co-op." Another muttered, "Honestly, it's kind of genius." Melanie's jaw clenched. "We're not paying this hillbilly a dime." But then, the lights in the HOA clubhouse flickered, then dimmed, then shut off. Clayton had flipped the Ridge Grid TM maintenance breaker, a feature Bert told him he was legally allowed to install for safety checks. He included a note, "Service temporarily paused due to unpaid invoice. Sunshine resumes upon receipt of funds." The press loves it. Within 24 hours, headlines exploded. HOA gets power cut by rancher. They tried to sue, now pays him monthly. Arizona cowboy becomes utility mogul. Overnight after legal trap springs, Melanie Harper officially nominated for HOA Villain of the Year. Someone even made a t-shirt, "I power my HOA with Petty." Clayton bought 20, gave one to Bert, gave another to George the Cactus. The money rolls in with pressure from residents and 2 actual rolling blackouts in the subdivision. The HOA caved, quietly. They sent payment via check. Clayton cashed it and immediately sent back a receipt on Ridge Grid letterhead with a sticky note. "Pleasure doing business. Next invoice in 30 days. Prices go up if I get annoyed." With the money, Clayton repaired his irrigation lines, expanded his orchard, and had enough left over to install a proper energy monitoring dashboard. He could now see in real time how much power the HOA was consuming, and charge accordingly. Bert's final touch. Bert filed a lien against HOA common property, just for fun, and then sent a final legal memo to Prescott Hills HOA subject settlement. Suggestion: you now have 2 choices. Continue paying Ridge Grid TM fair market rates. Spend 10 times as much moving the system elsewhere. Either way, my client wins. P.S. The cactus says hi. Back at the ranch, as the sun dipped low and the panels caught their final gleam, Clayton sat on his porch, boots up, hat tilted, sipping a cold beer. The Ridge Grid dashboard blinked with a payment confirmation. Hank let out a sleepy huff. Clayton raised his bottle. To Grandpa, to Bert, and to the dumbest HOA west of the Mississippi. Chapter 7, Solar Meltdown. There's losing a lawsuit. There's being mocked online. And then there's the complete implosion of your homeowners association in front of live cameras and a lemonade stand. Melanie Harper was about to experience all 3 in a single week. The HOA Civil War. It started with the electric bills. Prescott Hills residents, now receiving 40% of their energy from Ridge Grid TM, began noticing a new line item on their monthly statement: Ridge Grid Power Allocation, Community Utility Share Fee, 37 per on, 22 per household notes. Powered by your HOA's poor decisions. Some residents thought it was a joke. Others called it a scam. One guy named Barry made a TikTok about it that got over 5 million views. "Yo, my HOA told me to recycle. Now I'm paying a cowboy for sunshine. I respect it." Within 72 hours, Melanie's inbox was flooded with emails titled, "W his Ridge Grid. Wackino, why are we paying a rancher? Did you give him the solar panels? Is this legal?" The answer to that last one, yes, very. The HOA meeting that broke the internet. In a last-ditch effort to save face, Melanie called for an emergency HOA town hall. She rented out the clubhouse, hired a community unity consultant, and even printed pamphlets titled Reclaiming Our Power, a roadmap to energy independence. But by the time residents arrived, it was already too late. Clayton Ridge had set up shop directly across the street. He brought a tent, a hand-painted sign that said, "Welcome to Ridgegrid TM, tours every 30 minutes." And Hank wearing a tiny vest labeled security. The crowd split. Some residents wandered into the town hall. Others crossed over to Clayton's tent. He handed out cold lemonade and homemade cookies. "Ever want to see what $2 million in solar panels looks like up close?" He grinned. "Come on in. Bonus points if you used to yell at me about my tomato fence." Within 20 minutes, half the town hall crowd had defected. Melanie's mic feedback screeched, "Please, people, this is a formal meeting." From across the street, Clayton called out, "And this is a solar-powered ranch. Who wants a cookie?" He won. The great exodus. 2 HOA board members quit on the spot. One said, "I joined this to stop people from painting their garages purple, not to pay ransom to a man with a hat." Another simply walked over to Ridgegrid, asked for a tour, and never came back. Melanie was left standing alone at the podium, sweating, staring into the crowd of people who no longer trusted her. A child raised their hand and asked, "Can Mr. Ridge be our new mayor?" Someone shouted, "We don't even have a mayor." The crowd erupted in laughter. Clayton goes full entrepreneur. Within days, Ridgegrid TM expanded. Clayton added a gift shop, sells Ridgegrid mugs, bumper stickers, and signed photos of George the Cactus. Guided solar field tour. Includes How I Accidentally Became a Utility Tycoon speech. Show Recovery Support Circle every Sunday at 4 p.m. The best-selling item, a t-shirt that read, "My HOA tried to steal my land, and all I got was their solar farm." Even tourists started showing up. RVs parked along the dirt road. People posed for selfies next to the Ridgegrid sign. Clayton even got interviewed by NPR. "It's not revenge," he said calmly. "It's passive income with a side of poetic justice." Meltdown-activated HOA membership dropped by 63%. Dues dried up. The budget cratered. No one volunteered for board seats. Not even the guy who used to patrol for garbage cans left out too long. Melanie finally cracked. She was spotted sneaking out of the clubhouse with a box of solar brochures and a half-eaten organic wrap, muttering, "It was just supposed to be a panel. Just a panel." Rumors swirled that she moved to Flagstaff and started a compost business. No one really knows. Clayton, however, mailed her a postcard. "Good luck in Flagstaff. Try not to solar spread again. Sincerely, Jep Level 1. And with a photo of Hank in sunglasses attached, back at Ridgegrid. At sunset, as golden light bathed the array, Clayton walked the field with a clipboard. Tourists were finishing their last walkthrough. The gift shop was closing. Hank trotted beside him, tail high. He paused at the breaker box, now labeled, "Power Control Warning Flipping. This switch may trigger petty satisfaction." He smiled, flipped a switch, and the solar hum deepened, soft and steady, clean, quiet, completely his. Then he looked toward the distant Prescott Hills HOA clubhouse, dark and silent. "Solar meltdown complete," he murmured, and somewhere Grandpa Ridge was probably slow clapping in the afterlife. Chapter 8. The Final Burn. For most people, a win like Clayton's would have been enough. But Clayton Ridge wasn't most people. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to plant a flag on top of a solar panel with his name on it. And thanks to a few connections, a stubborn lawyer, and an accidental empire, that flag was about to fly. The incorporation. It started with Bert, of course. He showed up one morning with a briefcase full of signed documents and a smirk that could melt asphalt. "Say hello," Bert announced, "to Ridgegrid Energy, LLC. Clayton blinked. "You registered us as a company." "Correction, you are the company. I just typed real fast." The paperwork was legit articles of incorporation, state energy provider certification, tax ID, logo designed by Bert's niece, slightly cursed. But Clayton stared at it all, then grinned. "Well, damn, guess I need to buy nicer jeans." The exclusive contract. Within a week, Ridgegrid TM got its first real contract. not just some invoice tossed at the HOA like a frisbee of justice. Prescott County Utilities reached out. Their proposal: partner with Ridge Grid Energy LLC to supply supplemental clean energy during peak hours to nearby zones, including 3 school districts and a hospital. Clayton read the email 3 times before whispering, "They want me to power a hospital." Bert chuckled. "Told you, you play the long game. You end up holding the switch." The deal went through. It was official. Ridge Grid, TM, became a recognized microgrid utility supplier. The HOA, they now shared their power with a rancher they once tried to sue for trespassing on his own land. Life comes at you fast. The city ceremony. A month later, the mayor of Prescott invited Clayton to a ribbon-cutting ceremony for local renewable heroes. Clayton didn't care much for politicians, but the idea of Melanie seeing him on stage in a bolo tie with a golden scissors, too tempting. He showed up in boots, hat, and a custom shirt that read, "Sun-powered and petty, Ridge Grid TM, since oops." The mayor gave a glowing speech about resilience, innovation, and community growth. When Clayton stepped up to the mic, he kept it short. "I'm just a rancher who got solar panels dropped on him. I could have gotten mad. Instead, I got paid." Crowd laughter. "Also, if you're from an HOA, relax. I won't sue unless you step over the fence." He winked. The press ate it up. Melanie's last stand, sorta. Rumor had it Melanie did in fact attend the ceremony. In disguise. Wearing a hat, sunglasses, and clutching a green juice like it was a stress ball. She watched from the back, eyes wide as the crowd cheered Clayton Ridge, clean power pioneer. When his face hit the local news that night, she reportedly threw her TV remote into a wall and muttered, this man has merchandise." She wasn't wrong. Ridge Grid merch was now sold online, including JEP Level 1 throw blankets, HOA Who mugs, and a calendar called 12 Months of Hank and Solar Power. March had Hank in a cowboy hat next to an inverter box. The letter that sealed it all. Weeks later, Clayton received one final letter from what was left of the HOA board. It was handwritten, polite, and desperate. "Dear Mr. Ridge, in light of recent developments, we formally request to negotiate a long-term agreement with Ridge Grid Energy for fair rates, non-aggression clauses, and shared sustainability goals. We apologize for past actions and seek to move forward as respectful partners. Sincerely, the remaining 3. Prescott Hills HOA, rebranded Prescott Greens." Clayton read it slowly, then carefully folded it and filed it under "Poetic Justice, subfolder please." He wrote back, "Dear Prescott Greens, I accept your apology. I also accept cash, check, or good whiskey. Contracts attached, rates non-negotiable. Warmest regards, Clayton Ridge CEO, founder, accidental solar overlord, one last sunset." On a warm Friday evening, Clayton sat at the top of a small hill overlooking his field, now Ridge Grid HQ. Tourists had gone. The shop was closed. The panels hummed softly, drinking in the last light of day. Hank laid beside him, wagging his tail every few seconds like he, too, knew they'd pulled off something ridiculous and beautiful. Clayton sipped from his thermos, eyes steady on the horizon. "All I wanted was peace and tomatoes," he muttered. "They gave me panels. I gave them a lesson." He smiled. "And now, I power their lights when they complain." The sun dropped behind the mountains. Ridge Grid glowed. Chapter 9. Karma in Kilowatts. Legends don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear dusty boots, drink cactus tea, and own solar panels they never asked for. And in Prescott County, Arizona, they called him the man who outlived his HOA. The power of a petty legacy. Clayton Ridge never wanted fame. He didn't seek revenge. All he wanted was a quiet ranch, a tomato patch, and to be left the hell alone. But when the HOA built their solar grid on his land without permission, they didn't just cross a fence. They activated a 50-year-old trap. And in doing so, they didn't just lose. They handed Clayton a legacy, one that now powered homes, schools, and half the town library. Ridge Grid TM wasn't just a joke anymore. It was an actual utility. It had contracts with 3 school districts, a renewable energy award from the governor, and a waiting list for Ridge Grid-themed field trips. HOA rebranded or retired Prescott Hills. HOA tried to recover. They really did. They rebranded to Prescott Greens. New logo, New board, new rules. They even stopped banning porch flags. Shocking. But the damage was done. They became a national punchline. Don't show your way into a ridge grid situation. Common joke among suburban planners, Melanie Shee disappeared from public life. Last known sighting running a vegan yoga retreat in New Mexico called Solar Within. Rumor says her new place runs on wind power. Irony not included, or maybe it is. The Ridge Grid Scholarship. With Ridge Grid now generating income well beyond expectations, Clayton had a choice. Buy a yacht, too far from water, open a vineyard, too fancy, or do what his grandpa would have done. So he started the Ridge Grid Renewable Futures Fund, a yearly scholarship for rural kids pursuing energy and agriculture degrees. His only requirement, applicants must believe in fences, facts, and not being a jackass. The first recipient cried on stage when he received the check. The second brought Clayton a homemade tomato salsa jar that now sat proudly on his mantle. Clayton National Icon. By the end of the year, Clayton had been featured in 60 Minutes, Forbes, Cowboy Monthly, yes it's real, and a Netflix docuseries called What a Ranch, How One Man Flipped the Switch on Power and Pride. He even got a call from the Department of Energy asking if he'd consider being a rural ambassador. He said no, too many suits. Instead, he recorded a PSA in his barn, respect land boundaries. Don't assume silence means weakness. And if you're installing solar panels, maybe ask the fellow with the hat first. It went viral. Again. The final tour. On the one-year anniversary of the HOA meltdown, Clayton hosted a celebration at Ridge Grid. They called it Sunstock. Free lemonade, Hank in a cowboy hat, a solar-powered mechanical bull. Yes, people wrote it. Yes, it hurt. At sunset, he stood on a small hay bale stage, looked out over the crowd, locals, tourists, students, old rivals turned fans, and gave one last speech. Short, simple, real. I didn't set this trap. My family did. I just happened to be here when y'all walked into it. But I hope it taught something. Respect land, respect people. Don't assume the quiet ones aren't watching. And if you mess up, pay your damn invoice. Laughter, cheers, even some tears. Epilogue, Hank's Law. Years later, Arizona passed a rural land protection law nicknamed Hank's Law. It included new requirements for verified land surveys, recorded easement consent, fines for unpermitted infrastructure. It was inspired by one case, Clayton Ridge v. Prescott Hills HOA. The official bill used his name, but Clayton always said, Hank sniffed it out first. Credit where credit's due. Fade to sunset one quiet evening, back on the porch, Clayton rocked slowly in his chair. Hank, older now, a little grayer, curled at his boots. The panels glowed warm in the distance. Not just technology anymore. Now they were legacy, justice, poetry, and pure, unfiltered karma in kilowatts. Clayton smiled, sipped his tea, and whispered to the wind, "That'll do, son. That'll do."